Hi everyone and welcome to Creating with Ali. Today I'm going to have a bit of a play with the Heidi Swap toner and ink kit. These kits have been out for a little while now, but I have been a bit slow to getting on board, and I saw this on special, so I thought I'd take a little bit of a look-see. The reason why I purchased this kit in particular was because I wanted to see if I could do some foiling with some of my own stamps, and I've seen this being done online. The kit I'm opening up here comes with a toner, a stamp pad, and the foam pads that fit inside the actual stamp pad itself. The stamp pad has a foam pad inside of it already, and from what I can see online, the toner ink does dry out and can dry out quite quickly, so there's a couple of spares in there should that be the case. There's a little bit of prepping that needs to be done. You have to measure out about 15 mils of the toner ink and pour it in over the foam pad and let that soak in and sit for a little bit till it gets quite tacky. It doesn't want, not wet, but tacky. I'm just being really careful not to get the toner everywhere. And I did use a palette knife to help smooth this out a little bit more across the actual stamp pad itself, being careful not to get any in the channels down the sides. So I'm going to let that stamp pad just sit and keep soaking up to the side. In the meantime, I'm going to get out some of the Heidi Swap clear texture paste and use that in a project including a stencil. So on my desk at the moment, I have my stainless steel bulletin board, I suppose you'd call it, that I got from Officeworks with some magnets, and I'm going to use that to secure my stencil as I'm putting the texture paste over the top. I'm using a sponge to apply the texture paste just so that I get a thinner layer. I tried using the scraper tool and I just found it kept getting in under, and I wanted this to dry pretty quickly. Once it had dried off a little bit, I put a piece of the foil over the top, colour side up, in between two pieces of paper and ran that through my laminator. So at the moment I don't have a Minc machine, so I'm running it through the laminator here with varying results. And while that's making its way through the laminator, I chose another stencil that I'm going to texture paste here. So I'm just securing it now, and I'll use the same technique using the sponge that I just used in the previous one. Okay, that's out of the laminator now, so I'm just going to peel it off. I noticed there was a little bit of smudging going through. It didn't quite hold the way that I would have liked. So what I did here is I just popped it back on and chucked it back through the laminator again for a second time, see if that would help. And while that was underway, I grabbed out one of my stamps. So this is from one of the Stampin' Up! Stamp sets I have. I'm just sort of inking it up, and my intention here is to stamp it over the top of the piece of white card. I'm just giving it a test run here. Just make sure I pick up enough ink, and then I'll run that through. Back to the other design, running it through the second time didn't really make that much difference. It looks great, but I really don't think that the texture paste was dry enough. I think that might be my issue here, but I'm still going to put that aside because I'm going to use it for one of the card fronts. I'm just setting up here now to run through the other piece of texture paste, which I think is dried off. Just popping in a piece of the older gold that I had on hand. I'm going to run that one through the machine. So it's out now. Let's take a look. Okay, it definitely took on board. Now this had been pre-used, so that's probably why there was a little bit still left over, or it didn't quite take. But again, not too worried about the gaps. I've got an idea for that. So I'm going to pop that across to the side also. And I'm just going to prepare my toner stamped image and see how that one goes. So it was about here that things started to fall apart. I wasn't getting good results with the laminator itself. This didn't work, and I ended up running back through the second time, which was really silly because I know that once the toner ink gets heated, it's not going to work, and I don't know why I did it in the first place. I gave up on the toner stamped images for now. I did have some success with stamped images by dabbing on the texture paste, which I can show in a later video, but I will come back to that. And I've since, this is future me talking, I've since picked up a Minc machine, so we'll run that through and see if I can get it to work properly. But in the meantime, I've taken the two pieces that I did have, and you'll notice that even though they had those huge gaps, it's really not going to make too much difference as I'm inking over in between all the foiling. Once I've done that, I'll give it a bit of a rub too, just to clean it off and make its shine come back through. So I've done this in some of the distressed ink from Tim Holtz. The colours that I've used here are Spice Marmalade and Candied Apple. And that looked just fine. And with the other piece, again, I'm just going to go over it with some distressed ink. This time I'm using the violet, the wild, is it wilted violet from Tim Holtz. Just using my foam dabber to put it across the top. And then I'll set about and making some titles for these. I got all fancy with this part of the project. I ended up with some autumn leaves stamps that I've had. My embossing powders came out. My Kaiser Craft Thinlit dies. So my plan is to stamp these out, emboss and pop them on the top. So I'm just going to speed the video up here. So here are my final two cards. Now, this wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping to use the toner and the ink and my own stamps, but obviously that was a bit of a disaster to start with, so I'm going to come back in a later video and cover that one. But I managed to get two cards out today, and that is a bit of a bonus for me. So thank you for sticking around and watching this video. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, consider subscribing so that you can watch more of my videos in the future. And thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.